Hello, Karen. I'm reading over your paper and giving you some feedback here. Okay. Like most people, I had a difficult time choosing my major during my senior year of high school. Well, gosh, yes. A lot of people have difficulty much further on than that. I ended up with computer science because I see it as a field of the future. Currently, it seems like everything in my major is revolving around the topic of artificial intelligences. Um, I feel like people always just leave that singular and they just say artificial intelligence. I don't think we ever put an S on it. I could be wrong, but the idea of an intelligent robot was actually first inspired by the famous children's novel Wizard of Oz. Oh, I love that book. With the Heartless Tin Man and continued with the humanoid robot that impersonated Maria in Metropolis. By 1950, we had a generation of scientists, mathematicians, and philosophers working the idea of having machines that can solve problems and make decisions like the human mind. Okay, so your citation stuff, maybe I'll come back to that in a minute. The Heartless Tin Man. Okay, so to quote this, I think I would just say, was it first inspired by the famous children's novel Wizard of Oz? With the Tin Man, and then I think I'd start quoting the humanoid robot that impersonated Maria in Metropolis. I thought I'd read, well, I haven't read all those books. Okay, and why would I do that? The way that you set it up with the Heartless Tin Man and continued, like your sentence and the sentence you're quoting don't like flow into each other. Okay. I also was just, well, I fell asleep while I was watching this, but I watched a documentary about clockworks. And I've read a book about this too. And about how when people first developed clockworks, then they started developing all these things. Like there's a famous guy who, not a guy, a famous automaton, I think they're called. A famous, basically very primitive robot that could like write and draw pictures and stuff. Anyway, I was first introduced to the idea of artificial intelligence in my sophomore year of high school. I was during a sociology class. Our teacher showed our class several videos of this new developing technology called artificial intelligence. Again, I think no S. Look at you using a semicolon. We saw videos, it's correct. We saw videos about IBM's, I think you want to say IBM's Watson, because I think Watson was made by IBM. AlphaGo and the robot Sophia I don't know anything about, so I'm sure you're right. Watson is a question answering computer system capable of answering questions in natural language. You might explain what natural language is. AlphaGo is the Go master robot famous for beating current world ranking #1 Go player, KG, or something like that. I'm sure I said that very badly. In 2017. Ooh, well, that's interesting. You might not be surprised to hear that I don't know very much about Go. In fact, I'm nervous about how I said that. Lastly, Sophia is one of the world's most advanced social humanoid robots who is famous for being interviewed on all different forms of media. Okay, so the way that you set this up is... Sorry, dog. So the way that you set it up is to say that you showed us a video with... You previewed and said, we saw the video about this, this, and that. And then you go through and explain each one of them. I'm not sure that you need to list the 3 at first and then explain them. I feel like... I kept trying to remember. I was like, wait, this and that and this and that. I think maybe you could just say we saw videos of... Just jump into Watson is a question answering computer system. My first reaction to the idea of AIs was disgust. I was subconsciously threatened by the idea and was fearful this object or even creature may eventually surpass humans in our most advanced field. Compared to all species in nature, our intelligence. Okay, I love how this was going. Like, you were expressing how scary that is, as they have in many science fiction movies too, and books. Okay, but by the end I was confused. My first reaction was disgust. I was subconsciously threatened and was fearful. Okay, I'm with you there, but then when we get to of this object or even creature that may eventually surpass humans in our most advanced field, compared to all species in nature, aren't. Okay, so like the end of that, I'm not sure what of that you need, but that got very cloudy to me. At the same time, the scientist in me saw how incredibly helpful AIs can be to humanity. I'd love to hear an example of that. My curiosity and my fears combined are the reasons why I decided to major in computer science. I think that's an awesome reason. Curiosity plus fear. That's motivation. Like I have mentioned, computer science is an extremely controversial field. The controversy revolves around its threat to humanity. A major topic of concern currently is automation. Currently, automation is replacing jobs that are highly repetitive, such as factory workers and bus drivers. I feel like you might need to say over the last, this has been happening a long time. When you say currently, it sounds like it's just started, but I mean, that's been happening since, 1920 or 1900? I don't know, but for a long time. Even though automation has diminished countless jobs. Diminished? I don't think it's diminished them. It hasn't made them smaller. Even though it's made some jobs obsolete, even though it's made some jobs not things humans can do. I am still optimistic about the effect it is having on society as a whole. Yes, I'll admit there are some negatives in this, since 1.7 jobs, I'm sure you mean 1.7 million jobs, or maybe billion, I don't know, have been lost to automation since 2000. I like the way you incorporate that quote. That was all right. However, one must admit that humans make mistakes and machines do not. When carefully programmed, However, one must admit that humans make mistakes and machines do not. I would put a period there. Bam. To make that stand out. When carefully programmed, machines are more suited for some jobs than humans, as they are more efficient in all aspects when compared to humans. There are some aspects that machines are weak in, such as creative jobs, and those are fields society should be shifting into. Other than the benefits of AIs on social efficiency, what's social efficiency? Yeah, you're going to have to explain that. AIs can also be excellent assistants of high-stake career fields such as the medical field. One example of AIs in the medical field is in cancer diagnosis. More specifically, it is used, quote, to produce results in radiology where clinicians use computers to process images more rapidly and with significantly higher accuracy, allowing radiologists to focus on other aspects where their judgment is critical. Oh, you worked so hard with all those brackets. Let me remind you that you can put the whole thing in your own words, and then you can just put where you got it from and the page number if there is one. You can quote, not a direct quote, not pulling words directly from it, not pulling words directly from it, but just explaining the idea and then saying, here's where I got that idea. In this example, AI serves almost as an assistant of a radiologist. I see it as a reasonable division of labor, each side doing what they are best at doing, which results in better efficiency on both ends. I can see it as reasonable, each side doing what they're best at. I think I would end with best at. The rest of that kind of confused me. I can see it as a trend of the future. Bam. You know how to use those short sentences to focus in, which is great. From the points I've mentioned above, I conclude that automation is not the main threat to humanity. Wait, why? I don't feel like you explained why it wasn't a threat. But you did explain some other stuff. You explained how it could benefit us. However, if we want to benefit from this technology, we must find a way to control it. There are countless ways people say this can be done, but images in two general ones. I think you mean. One says we should program AI with less restrictions. The other says we should develop the technology in such a way that it becomes a part of us. Ooh, interesting. It's obvious that both of these methods would have their own near impossible challenges. Artificial intelligence, you all right, Mace? Okay. Artificial intelligence are machines that run on hardware and electricity. They do not need to sleep or eat, and they can process information in light years ahead of humans. Okay, that got confusing too. I think you could say that in fewer words, which would be clear. They do not need to sleep or eat, and they're fast. Take AlphaGo, for example. It took the machine only 40 days to become a complete master in Go. So 40 days won't be long enough for me to become a Go master. Probably not. On the 21st day of this process, AlphaGo would be this person on that historically impactive day? Historically impactive day. I think it would say historically impactful. I think is the word that we would use there. But you could also just say on that historic day. My point is which I think will probably be better. My point is, once the perfect artificial intelligence is invented, it will suppress us in a blink of an eye. How can we restrict something that's so intellectual so far ahead of us? I mean, I'm not sure AI is intellectual. I feel like there's some other thing you're talking about there. Like, it's not that it's like coming up with deep ideas and it's a philosopher. I do not know. That is a question that's far too difficult for single college students like me to answer. Fair enough. Or any single human. One thing I do know is that those in power will be racing to complete the technology. There is an arm race. There's an. Okay, so you're talking about an arms race, which people will compare an arms race, that is, two countries building up weapons to keep up with each other. Um, excuse me. So maybe you could say something like there's an arms race to get the best artificial intelligence or the most powerful artificial intelligence, something like that. That is seriously concerning to me because I know questions like restriction and properly programming will be a problem that may be overlooked. That is seriously concerning to me because I know questions about restrictions and problems with programming may be overlooked. Okay, so what did I do with that sentence? That is seriously concerning to me because I know that's the main part of your sentence. I know questions like, okay, restriction isn't a question, so I'm going to say because I know restrictions and proper programming may be overlooked. You don't need to say it's a problem. We know it's a problem. Okay, moving on to the second method, engraving this technology inside our body so we can become part of the technology. What? This should theoretically be a safer method in terms of trust. However, this would be more problematic to execute since we likely want the technology to be perfect before we consider handing ourselves over to it. Oh my God, that's too scary. I think that should be a separate paragraph too. Okay. All the points I've mentioned above are still just theories since computer science is a field that's forever evolving. Even so, I think everyone should spend some time doing some research about artificial intelligence. Since AIs will not just exclusively be a part of the computing field, but rather something that's part of all of our lives. I mean, they already are, right? To the extent that, like, Siri, for one, is in there. Which I feel like it's weird you didn't mention Siri at all, but I don't know. Maybe it's not. Although it may seem that my essay is ending on a rather low note, I still love my major. Looking forward to learning about computer science. Always been a solution to that. Beautiful. Let me look at your works cited. Okay. So I see what the problem was with the John Scott one. It looks to me like your author should be Scott, John et al. That would mean that Scott, John Scott wrote it with a bunch of other people. And then when you cite it in your text, it should say Scott when you reference it. Okay, that's what happened there. Because I know you know how to do that. You did it right other places. Okay, I think your ideas in here were really strong, and I think your organization was really close to where it ought to be. And just a few places I hope I talk through on here can help you kind of untangle some of the sentences that were not as clear as I think they could be.